Let me ask you something. Have you ever caught yourself saying, "Tomorrow I'll start"? Like you wake up, feel a spark, maybe after watching a powerful video or reading a quote, and you think, "Yeah, this time I'm serious." You write a to-do list, plan your meals, swear off distractions. And then by the end of the day, you've convinced yourself that starting tomorrow sounds better. Just one more day of rest, right? One more scroll through social media. One more excuse. But here's the truth we don't like to admit. That version of you who keeps postponing, who keeps getting ready to be great, that version is winning. Every time you delay action, every time you choose comfort over growth, that weaker self inside you gets stronger. Not in a loud, aggressive way, but in quiet, subtle whispers. You don't hear it yelling. You hear it softly saying, "It's okay. You'll try again later." And you believe it. I know that version well. We all do. It's the version that hits snooze when the alarm rings. That cracks open the chips when the plan was to eat clean. That tells you you're not ready yet, not good enough, not like those people out there who have it all figured out. That weak self is sneaky, it's comfortable, it's familiar, and worst of all, it's persuasive. But I want to tell you something today, something Stoic philosophy knew long before any of us had access to self-help books or YouTube channels or motivational reels. You are not your thoughts. You are not your habits. You are not your past. You are the sum of the actions you choose right now, right here, this moment. And those ancient Stoics, they weren't just guys sitting around writing fancy quotes. They were warriors of the mind and the world. They faced loss, betrayal, exile, war, and still kept control over the one thing that mattered most, themselves. Marcus Aurelius, a literal emperor, woke up every day and reminded himself, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." That wasn't pessimism, that was urgency. A daily push to act, to lead, to live. So why are you waiting? What exactly are you waiting for? A sign? A perfect moment? Newsflash. It's not coming. And deep down, you already know that. That's why you're here. You clicked on this video because part of you is sick of it, tired of the cycle, fed up with breaking promises to yourself. You want change, but not the kind that fades by next week. You want to destroy the weak version of yourself, not hide it, not fix it, not manage it, destroy it. And from its ashes, build the version that doesn't flinch when life gets hard, the one who acts, leads, and lives with purpose. Because the truth, that strong version is already inside you. It's not waiting to be created, it's waiting to be unleashed. So no, this isn't another pep talk, this is war. A personal one, a fight you have to win, not once, but over and over again. And in this video, you're not just going to get motivation, you're going to get the weapons, the mental armor, the strategies the Stoics use to conquer themselves. Because if you don't take control of your mind, your weak self will. And it already has. But that ends today. Now let's begin. Let's talk about that weaker version of you. Not the version that slips up once in a while. No, I'm talking about the one that runs the show. The one that's been calling the shots sometimes without you even realizing it. Because here's the thing, that weaker self doesn't show up like a villain in a movie. It doesn't kick down the door, point fingers, and scream in your face. It's much more subtle than that. It's in the choices you don't make, the conversations you avoid, the days you let slide without doing the thing you said mattered most. It's in your silence, your stillness, your distractions. That version of you has one job, to keep you comfortable. That's it. It's not trying to ruin your life on purpose. It's trying to keep you safe, familiar, untouched by pain or rejection or failure. And that sounds kind of sweet, right? Who wouldn't want to stay safe? But safe doesn't get you anywhere. Safe doesn't change your life. Safe doesn't build anything worth having. You know what safe does? It steals time. Slowly, quietly, without you noticing, until one day you look back and realize that weeks, months, maybe even years have gone by, and the gap between who you are and who you want to be has only grown, and it all starts with little negotiations. You know the ones I mean. The 5 extra minutes in bed that turn into 40. The I'll start Monday that becomes maybe next month. The skipped workout. The task you avoid. The honest conversation you keep pushing down because it's easier not to face it. Those aren't harmless little choices. Those are victories for your weak self. Every time you give in, that part of you grows stronger. And what's wild is that you know it. You feel it. That quiet disappointment, that little sting when you break your own word. That's your strong self watching from the background, knowing you've just handed over control again. It's like having a roommate who trashes your place every day and tells you, "Relax, I'll clean up later." But they never do. And the more you let it slide, the more you start living in that mess as if it's normal. Until one day it's so cluttered and chaotic that you don't even know where to start. And that's when most people give up. Not because they're lazy, not because they're broken, but because they think the mess defines them. But it doesn't. Your weak self is not your identity. It's a habit, a pattern, a script that got installed somewhere along the way. Maybe from trauma, maybe from fear, maybe from just being tired of trying so hard and not seeing results. And if that's you, I get it. Life beats you up sometimes. You try and fail, try again and still fail, and after a while it's easier to just stop showing up for yourself, because who wants to feel like a failure over and over again? But here's what the Stoics figured out, and it's probably the most important thing I'll say to you in this video. You are not what happens to you. You are what you do about it. Marcus Aurelius was the most powerful man in the world, and still he wrote to himself daily about staying humble, disciplined, focused. He knew that power on the outside means nothing if you're a mess on the inside. Seneca lost his wealth, his status, everything he had, but he kept his mind, his peace, his control. Epictetus was literally born a slave, beaten, degraded, but when he spoke about freedom, people listened, because he understood something most of us miss. The weak version of you only wins if you stop fighting. That voice that tells you it's too late for you, or you'll never be like them, or you don't have what it takes. That voice is lying. It's always been lying. It's just good at sounding like truth. But if you slow down, get quiet and listen closely, you'll hear another voice. Quieter but stronger. The one that says try again. The one that says you're not done. The one that says you don't need permission, and you don't. You never did. But destroying your weak self doesn't happen through motivation. That's the lie most people buy into. They think if they just get fired up enough, if the music swells and the video ends with a bang, they'll finally take action. But that fire burns out quick. Real change, that comes from decision. A quiet, steady, firm decision to stop letting the wrong version of you speak for your life. You ever meet someone who changed everything about themselves? Like they were heading down a bad path, addiction, poverty, depression, and then one day they just flipped it? Maybe they didn't even look like they'd succeed. No resources, no support. But they made the choice. And from that moment on, they started showing up differently. They built momentum brick by brick with no excuses. That's not magic. That's what happens when someone kills their weak self. Not with rage, but with responsibility. Because that's the real enemy of weakness, ownership. The moment you say, "This is my life and I'm done blaming anyone or anything else," you start to take your power back. And yeah, it's uncomfortable, it should be. You've been hiding behind reasons for years. Tired, busy, broken, not good enough. But the second you let go of those narratives, even if it hurts, that's the second you start writing a new one. But don't get me wrong. Killing the weak self doesn't mean becoming cold or emotionless or grinding yourself into the ground. It doesn't mean hating who you are right now. It means finally honoring the part of you that's been waiting to lead. The one who's tired of the loop. The one who doesn't just want change, they demand it. And to step into that, you've got to stop treating your time like it's unlimited, because it's not. You ever seen an hourglass? Each grain of sand slipping through like it's nothing. That's your life. You don't know how many grains you've got left. None of us do. And you're spending them hesitating, waiting, scrolling, doubting. You're feeding the weaker version of yourself every time you choose comfort over courage. But that can stop, right here, right now. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be dramatic. It just has to start. So take a breath. Think about the things you do every day that shrink you. Not in a big way, but little by little. That one extra hour on your phone before bed. That conversation you avoid because you don't want to rock the boat. That dream you keep locked in your mind because you're afraid of failing in public. Every single one of those is a drop in the glass that's slowly drowning your stronger self. And here's the scariest part. If you don't actively destroy your weak self, you don't just stay the same, you get worse. Slowly, quietly, you become more timid, more unsure, more detached from your own potential. That's not drama, that's reality. And the only thing that can stop it is you. Not someday, not next week, you. Right now. Because I'm not here to entertain you. I'm not here to be just another voice in your background while you do something else. I'm here to pull you back to the front line of your own life. To remind you that you are the one. Not in a cheesy, believe in yourself way, but in the most raw, honest way I know how to say it. No one is coming to rescue you. No one is going to hand you the identity you want. That has to be earned, forged, built through fire. And the fire is here. Right now, you're in it. So what are you going to do? Are you going to keep negotiating with the part of you that has nothing to offer but safety and regret? Or are you finally going to say, enough? Because when you do, when you stand up and say that version of me is done, you'll feel it. Not all at once. Not like some dramatic movie moment, but like a deep, steady click inside. Like something just locked into place. You'll move differently, speak differently, even if it's subtle. Because now you're not living as a victim of your weaker patterns, you're fighting them. You're rewriting the script, and that's the beginning of everything. So don't overthink it. Don't wait to feel ready. Just decide. Start small. Stay consistent. And remember, every choice you make is a vote. A vote for the version of you that shows up, or the one that stays silent. The version that builds, or the one that breaks. The version that lives, or the one that simply exists. You get to choose. You always have. And the war starts now. All right, so now that we've called out the weak version of ourselves, the one that keeps showing up uninvited, dragging us down with excuses and hesitation, it's time to shift. And I mean really shift, because calling out the problem is only half the battle. The real work starts when we begin becoming the version of ourselves we keep imagining. The strong self, the one that doesn't need permission, the one that wakes up and leads regardless of how they feel, the one that doesn't rely on motivation to move, they just move. And the most important thing I want you to know about that version of you, the one that's disciplined, grounded, unshakable, is that you don't need to build them from scratch. That person already exists. Maybe not fully formed, maybe not fully unleashed, but they're in there. You felt them before, that one day when you actually followed through on everything you said you would do. That one week where you were in the zone, locked in, feeling strong, focused, alive. That wasn't a fluke. That was a glimpse. That was proof. But for most people, those moments feel rare, like they just stumbled into it by accident. Like the stars aligned and just for a moment they were living in their full potential. But that isn't luck. That's alignment. That's what happens when your actions finally match the voice in your head that says, "This is who I could be." So why can't we live like that every day? Because we wait. We wait for motivation to strike. We wait for the perfect schedule. We wait until we feel like it. But what if I told you your strongest self doesn't wait? They don't even ask how they feel before they act. They don't consult their emotions. They act because that's who they are. And that's what the Stoics understood so clearly. They weren't emotional robots. They just didn't let their emotions drive the car. They felt everything, but they still showed up. They still chose action because they knew what was in their control and what wasn't. That's where your strong self begins, with control, and not the fake kind. Not control over people or your job or the economy or how others treat you. I'm talking about the only real control that matters. Your response, your focus, your habits, your words, your choices, everything else. It's noise, it's weather, but you're the one holding the wheel, whether you realize it or not, and I get it. It doesn't feel that way sometimes, especially when life throws stuff at you that you didn't ask for. Heartbreak, rejection, failure. But those aren't signs that you're weak. They're invitations to step into strength. Think about it. When has your character actually grown the most? Was it during the easy seasons of life or the hard ones? The strong version of you isn't formed in comfort. They're forged in resistance, in doing the right thing when no one's watching, in choosing discipline when distractions are begging for your attention. You ever met someone who carries a kind of quiet power? Like they don't even need to say much. You can just feel it in the way they move, the way they breathe, the way they handle stress without snapping. That's not natural talent. That's practice strength. That's years of doing the work, often without applause. It's built through small, consistent acts of courage. Getting up early when it would have been easy to stay in bed. Finishing the job when they were tired. Holding their ground when their voice shook. That's strength. And here's where it gets real. That strong version of you doesn't come from wishing. They come from doing. Every single time you choose the harder path, not because it's dramatic, but because it's right, you're stepping into them. Every time you say no to something easy that pulls you off course, you're voting for the strongest version of you. That's how identity works. You don't become disciplined by saying, I want to be disciplined. You become disciplined by doing what a disciplined person would do. But the biggest mistake people make is they think they need to feel like that person before they act like them. Let me tell you something, your feelings will lie to you. They'll tell you you're not ready, that you're too tired, that maybe tomorrow's better, that you need a little more research or preparation or comfort before you begin. That's your old wiring talking. That's your weak self, just dressed in fancier clothes. You have to act like the strong version of yourself before you feel like them. That's the only way. You think a Stoic woke up every morning excited to face hardship? But they did it anyway. You think the strongest people in your life are just wired differently? Just decided to stop listening to their comfort zone. They got tired of being dragged by it, tired of letting it set the tone, so they set a new tone and stuck to it. Even when it was hard, especially when it was hard, there's something powerful about showing up on the days you least want to. It rewires you. It teaches your mind that your word matters more than your mood. And when that shift happens, you become dangerous, not reckless, not impulsive, but rooted. Because now you're not chasing strength like a dream, you're living it. Let me ask you something. If someone recorded a documentary of your life for the next week and every second of it was streamed to the world, no edits, no filters, what would they see? Would they see a person moving with purpose? Or would they see hesitation, inconsistency, avoidance? That's not a guilt trip. That's a mirror. Because that strong self, they're not hiding in your future. They're hiding in your next decision. your next moment. You don't need a full reinvention to find them. You need 1 hour of action, 1 day of commitment, 1 week of choosing what's hard but true. And the more you do it, the less you'll need to force it. That version of you starts becoming automatic because now you've got momentum. You're becoming the person who follows through, the person who doesn't flinch in discomfort, the person who doesn't need a guarantee to show up. And here's the truth that might hit you hardest. No one's coming to unlock that version of you. Not me, not a coach, not a book. You already have the key. You've just been too busy doubting yourself to turn it. You've been waiting for a green light when the truth is, the road was always open. The only thing in the way was hesitation. So I want you to imagine this. You wake up tomorrow, no drama, no fireworks, just a quiet, steady resolve. You don't wait for the alarm to ring twice. You sit up, feet on the floor. You remind yourself, I don't serve comfort anymore. I serve who I'm becoming. You drink water, move your body, make your bed, look yourself in the mirror, and you decide again and again that no matter what the day throws at you, you're showing up. Strong, present, grounded. Not because it's easy, not because it's perfect, but because it's who you are now. You start small. You stay consistent. And soon people start noticing. Your energy changes. You say less, but it means more. You walk differently. You react differently. Not because you're faking it, but because it's real. You're becoming undeniable. And you didn't wait for a sign. You didn't need hype. You just chose the harder, better way. Quietly, repeatedly. That's what strength looks like. It doesn't shout, it builds. And then one day it is you. And the best part, you don't need to explain it. You don't need to prove it to anyone. Your life will speak for itself. So here's the question you have to answer now. Are you ready to live like that person? Not next year. Not when life calms down. Now today. Because the version of you that's still waiting, they've had enough time. It's time to stop negotiating with them and start embodying the one that doesn't flinch when it's time to act. The one that doesn't apologize for their ambition. The one that holds the line, even when no one's watching. Because the world doesn't need another person who talks about change. It needs someone who embodies it, someone like you. So choose, decide, act. And don't look back. All right, you've made the decision to destroy your weak self. You've started uncovering the strongest version of who you really are, through action, through ownership, through showing up when it's hard. That's powerful. That's real. But here's the part most people overlook when they're trying to build a new identity. Your environment will always compete with your effort, and if you don't control it, it will control you. It's not just about willpower. It's not about grinding every day like a machine while everything around you is dragging you back into old habits. Because you can be the most motivated, most fired up version of yourself at 6 a.m. But if your environment is built to feed your weaker self, that motivation is going to fade. And it's not your fault. It's just human behavior. We are deeply shaped by what surrounds us, the people, the places, the patterns. All of it. So think about this. When you walk into your room, what does it say about who you are? Does it invite focus, growth, discipline, or does it scream distraction, comfort, chaos? When you open your phone, is it pulling you toward who you want to be or pushing you into comparison, noise, and mental clutter? When you spend time with people, do you leave the conversation feeling elevated or drained? The answers to those questions matter more than most people ever realize. Because you can try to change all you want, but if your surroundings are programmed for the old you, they'll keep pulling you back like gravity. I've seen this play out in so many lives. You ever try to change, and your friends act weird about it? You say no to a party or a drink or a weekend of wasting time, and suddenly people are joking that you're too serious now, or boring, or thinking you're better than everyone. That's not on you. That's just the discomfort of your growth hitting their stagnation. And it's always easier to pull someone back down than climb up with them. Most people don't mean harm, but they also don't want to feel challenged by your progress. It reminds them of what they're not doing. So they laugh, they tease, they nudge you to stay the same. But that version of you, that version doesn't exist anymore. And you can't keep apologizing for it. You have to protect your space like it's sacred. Because it is. This isn't just your life, it's your launch pad. And if you keep cluttering it with things that don't support your direction, you'll keep crashing before you take off. It's not just about cleaning your room or turning off your notifications. It's about designing an environment that serves your mission. Every choice you make in what surrounds you is either reinforcing your strong self or empowering your weak one. There's no neutral ground. Let me give you a real example. I knew a guy, used to wake up fired up every morning, read philosophy, hit the gym, grind on his business. He had this rhythm, this flow. But after a while, he started slipping. Not because he stopped caring, but because his surroundings stayed the same. He'd finish work and sit on the same couch where he used to binge Netflix all night. His phone was still filled with apps that sucked him back into endless scrolling. His friends, while not bad people, were still living in that old mindset of just chill, bro, why stress so much? Little by little, those things chipped away at his progress, not with force, but with friction. And that's how it happens. Not in one big moment, but in the little ones you let slide. He didn't fall off because he lost motivation. He fell off because he didn't build a system around his new identity. That's what consistency is really about. Not just willpower, but structure. Systems that make the right choice the easy choice. Environments that make doing the work feel natural, not forced. And I get it, some of you are thinking, yeah, but I don't have control over everything around me. Maybe you live with family, maybe your job isn't ideal, maybe your current circle isn't supportive, and that's valid. But here's the part you can control: how you respond, what you tolerate, and what you reinforce. You can't always choose the people around you, but you can choose how much access they get to your energy. You can't always choose where you live, but you can choose what habits exist inside that space. You can't always escape distractions, but you can design systems that make it harder to fall into them. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. So if your goal is to live as your strongest self, then your environment better reflect that. Your calendar, your morning, your conversations, your bedroom, your phone screen, your habits. It all counts. And once you set that up, once you build those layers of support around who you're becoming, then consistency becomes possible. Not easy, but possible. Because now you're not fighting your surroundings every single day, you're working with them. But let's talk about consistency, because that's the next battleground. This is where a lot of people lose momentum, not because they don't care, but because they expect to always feel on, always feel driven, always feel inspired. And that's just not reality. You're going to have days where the fire isn't there, days where the routine feels dull, days where you're just tired. And on those days, your weak self is going to show up again, not yelling, but whispering. It's okay to skip today. You've been doing great. Take a break. And sometimes breaks are okay, but when those breaks turn into backslides and those backslides turn into breakdowns, you realize something critical. Motivation got you started, but only consistency will keep you going. So how do you stay consistent when the emotion fades? You change your identity. You stop thinking of yourself as someone who's trying to be disciplined, and you start acting like someone who already is. It's a mental shift, because when you believe you are something, you behave in alignment with that belief. You stop asking yourself, should I do this today? And start saying, this is just what I do. It's not forced. It's not a debate. It's who you are now. And that's not fake. That's not lying to yourself. That's reinforcing a new truth through action. The Stoics didn't wait for good days. They didn't train themselves to only be strong in ideal circumstances. They trained for the storm, they practiced discomfort, they invited challenge so they wouldn't be caught off guard by it. And if they could find strength in exile, in slavery, and betrayal, then you and I can find strength in the middle of a busy week, in a messy house, in a moment of doubt. You don't have to be perfect to be consistent, you just have to keep showing up. Even when it's messy, even when it's boring, even when no one claps for you. That's how momentum is built. One decision, one choice, one moment at a time. And yeah, some days you'll miss. Some days will feel like a step back. But that doesn't erase the work. You don't fail just because you stumbled. You only fail when you stop stepping forward. So take a moment right now to think. What does your environment say about who you're becoming? Who are the people in your life reinforcing? The old you or the new you? What systems have you built that actually support your strongest identity? And if the answers aren't what you hoped, good. That means you've got clarity, you've got something to shift. And now, you have the tools to do it, because this isn't about motivation anymore, this is about mastery. Mastery over your choices, your space, your identity, and most of all, your response. You get to decide how you build your life, no one else. And if something around you isn't serving that vision, it's time to change it, not next year, not when it's convenient. Now today, because this is your life, and you don't get to live it twice. So ask yourself, what needs to go? What needs to be built? What needs to be protected? Your strong self is counting on you to answer, so here we are. You've made it all the way through this journey, through the fire, through the reflection, through the battle between your weaker self and the one you're trying to unleash. And now you're sitting here, maybe feeling a little more awake, maybe a little more alive, maybe just a little more certain that you're meant for something more than just surviving the day. That feeling, that pull in your chest, that's not hype. That's not just a temporary high from listening to words that fired you up. That's the real you, the strongest version of you, knocking from the inside, asking to be let out. And look, I know how easy it is to fall back into the old rhythm after this ends. The world doesn't change just because you watched a powerful video or heard something that clicked. The notifications will come back. The distractions will still be there. The people in your life might not understand the changes you're trying to make. Some of them might even resist it, not because they want to stop you, but because your evolution highlights their stagnation. And that's not your problem to solve. Your only job now is to choose who you want to be in the face of all that. Not just today when you're inspired, but tomorrow morning when your alarm goes off and your bed feels too comfortable. Next week when you feel tired, when nobody's cheering you on, when results don't show up as fast as you hoped. What do you do then? Because that's the true test. Not how motivated you feel right now, but who you choose to be when the emotion fades and life gets loud again. That's where most people slip. Not because they're weak, but because they're not prepared for the war to be daily. The weak version of you doesn't just vanish because you decided to grow. It gets quieter, more strategic, it waits. It hides behind logic and tiredness, and just this once, and it will rise again. But now, so will you. Because the truth is, this isn't about becoming someone entirely new. It's about returning to who you were before the world taught you to shrink. Before fear and failure and self-doubt crept in and started writing your story for you. You were never meant to live small. You were never meant to settle into mediocrity and call it comfort. That fire in your chest, that hunger. That's the reminder. You're here to rise, to lead, to become so locked into your principles, your growth, your purpose, that the old version of you doesn't stand a chance. And maybe you're thinking, yeah, but I've tried before and I always fall back. So what? Falling back isn't failure. Staying down is. You don't build strength by being flawless, you build it by refusing to quit. Every single time you rise, you build credibility with yourself. You tell your own mind, I can be trusted to rise again. That's what Stoicism teaches us, not perfection, not emotionless strength, but stability, clarity, the ability to stay grounded in the middle of chaos, to act with purpose even when fear is screaming, to hold the line when your feelings beg you to let go. And if you've made it here, if you've listened this far, I already know one thing about you: you're not average. Most people don't finish things like this. Most people stop at the intro, the hype, the first roadblock. But you're still here. That means something. It means there's a deeper reason you're watching this, a deeper part of you that refuses to keep living on autopilot. So don't ignore that. Don't let that version of you die quietly in the name of comfort. Let today be the day you draw the line, not with dramatic declarations or empty resolutions, but with real decisions. Small, steady, quiet decisions that you repeat day after day until the noise of your weaker self can't be heard over the momentum of who you've become. No more waiting for motivation. No more waiting for the perfect time. No more waiting to feel ready. Because the truth is, you become ready by doing, by acting before you feel like it, by proving again and again that you are no longer willing to hand your life over to fear and delay. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to take this energy, this clarity, this fire, and do something with it. Don't just nod along and say, "That was powerful." That's not enough. I want you to walk away from this with a decision made, a plan in motion, and a standard raised. Decide who you're going to be when no one's watching. Decide what you're going to build when no one believes in it yet. Decide how you're going to live when it's hard, when it's boring, when it's tempting to go back to who you used to be. And then I want you to write it down. Right now, somewhere you'll see it every single day. Not a goal, not a wish, a standard, a commitment, a line you refuse to cross backward, because that's how real change begins. Not in giant leaps, but in quiet moments of courage where you say, "Enough. I know who I am, and I will no longer live beneath that truth." So what now? Now you rise every day, every hour, every time you hear that old voice whispering, trying to pull you back. You rise, not because it's easy, not because it's perfect, but because it's who you are now. And if this message hit you deep, if it woke something up in you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it, pass it on. Let someone else feel the shift too. Comment below and say it clearly. I end my weak self today, not as a performance, not for attention, but as a declaration, a line in the sand, a reminder to yourself and to the world that you're done shrinking. This is the start of a new chapter, one where your actions speak louder than your doubts, one where your identity is earned, one choice at a time, one where your strong self finally gets to lead. You already know the way. Now prove it. And remember, this journey doesn't end here. This is just the beginning.